Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Hey guys, welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts Coaching. I am Carrie Marshall, and I am here to talk to you about belief. Now, I know that sometimes belief sounds like a soft topic. Oftentimes when people come to coaching, what they want is they want all of the how. How do you do this? And how do you go about this? But I will always like to kind of slow people down a little bit and ask them, when we pick a goal, so how much do you believe that you're actually going to be able to do this? Now, it takes people back a little bit, and sometimes they say, oh yeah, I believe I can do it. But I can always tell how big their belief is based on the actions that they're taking. Now, belief is so important because we show up differently when we are in full belief that something is going to happen. So I want you to think about the last time that you went after something kind of big. Did you half-ass it, kind of thinking that it wasn't going to happen, and so you kind of did it? One big thing that I see is that when people aren't in full belief, they'll actually start to skirt around their goal. So we're going to talk about that today on the podcast because it's important for you to know where your belief is at several different times along your goal. So the first time that we want to look at belief is the minute that you set a goal. Number one, why did you set the goal? And we're going to talk about that. But number two is, how much do I believe that I can actually get this goal accomplished? Now, I talk about impossible goals. So what is an impossible goal? That means that right now, when you think about that goal, you don't think that it is possible to do that. You don't believe that that is in your realm of possibility. So I have one of my clients that is an athlete that wanted to go pro. And so when he came to me, he said, I want to do this and I have a desire for it, but my belief about myself and being able to actually go pro is pretty low. So belief doesn't mean that you can't go after a goal, but we want to be able to watch it as we go after the goal. So with this pro athlete, or wanting to be pro athlete, we had to really stop and think about, well, why don't you believe that you're able to do this? And a couple things came up for him. Number one is he said it was a really, really competitive sport. He's like, not a lot of guys get it. A lot of guys want it. The second thing that he said is that his talent was amazing, but that there were other people that were better than him. And so he was basing his belief based on other people and what they could do. So the more that we looked at the belief, of course, he still wanted to keep that goal, but I told him that we needed to do belief work before he started to take action in the goal. So what is belief work? Well, once again, we want to identify where our belief is at. This is a really, really interesting thing for all of us to do, but I'll tell you, it takes skill and practice to do this. Most often we are not tied in, clued in to being able to actually look at ourselves and how we are interacting with ourselves. I was up at a conference speaking this last weekend, and we were talking about belief, and one of the guys raised his hand and he said, Carrie, I don't really know where my belief is at. And I said, oh, why not? Like, do you want to just kind of tap in and see where you're at? And he goes, it's like asking me to talk to somebody that speaks a foreign language. He said, I really, really don't think about myself. I don't talk to myself. I don't stop and think about what I'm thinking about. So this can be a really general thing that people do often, is they actually start ignoring themselves. And so when we look at desires, beliefs, goals, they're doing things just out of habit instead of actually focusing on themselves. So as you think about your belief, you have to know what you're believing. You have to know how to tap into that. So we're going to go through an exercise together right now to show you. So I want you to think about that goal right now. And then I want you to think about yourself in a year. Do you see yourself in that goal? So let's take building a business. If I say in a year, do you have a business that's thriving? Do you have a business that lights you up, that you're excited to go to? If you say no, I want to know why, number one. And number two, I want you to think about what it's going to take for you to get there. So when we're talking about belief, it can be that easy to kind of tap into it. The second thing that we can look at with belief is we can really think about looking at your belief of your life right now. It's a really easy step. So look at your life right now. Do you believe that you are living this life on purpose? Do you believe that things just happen to you because you're lucky or unlucky? Or do you actually believe that you have created the life that you're living right now, for better or for worse? So like I said, coming back to my client, he wanted to turn pro, but his belief about himself was pretty low. He said the outside circumstances were too great. He wasn't in charge of that. And so that made a difference for him of how he was actually interacting on his practices, showing up, talking to people, networking. All of that made a huge difference of how he was interacting. And so we have to look at that belief. So we did some belief work. He started to believe in himself. He believed that even if outside circumstances were happening, he could show up as the best version of himself and really go all in. And as you probably have already decided and come up with, he absolutely is able to go pro, and he's still pro to this day. And I'm super proud of him for doing that belief work. So why does belief work matter for you? Well, like I said, we've got to start our goal and we've got to look at the belief. You want to look at a belief on a scale of 0 to 5. Now, I don't like the 0 to 10 scale because have you ever noticed that a lot of people end up at like a 7? It's just not beneficial to kind of bullshit yourself about where you're at. So let's go 0 to 5. You are either a 0, there's no belief at all that you're going to do this, or you're at a 5, which is 100% full belief. I can see myself there and I'm taking action from that place. So where are you at? Are you a 0? Are you a 1, 2? Where are you at? Now, like I said, you don't need to be in full belief in order to start a goal, but you want to be able to know where you're at because we want to make that belief, we're going to watch it ebb and flow throughout the goal. So I have a client that's building a business right now, and she loves to get into like a big belief, meaning a 4 or 5, when she's taking action. It's not until the action leads to a failure that then she watches her belief just plummet to a 1. So I want to just kind of offer that belief is something that is fluid. It's going to ebb and flow with what's going on, actions, your thoughts, things like that as you go after your goal. So when you're thinking about your belief, we always just want to be keyed into it so that we can start to see. So my client, like I said, she'll be in a 4 or 5 belief about what's going to happen, but then she'll fail and she'll go down to a 1 and be like, this isn't worth it. It's not working. All of those thoughts will come up for her. So we started to kind of notice something that happens with her. Every time she takes action, her belief goes down. It's a pattern that happens within our brain. So this is where I'm going to geek out a little bit because I love brain science. I love to figure out how our brain interacts with our body because we know that our thoughts are absolutely connecting to our neural pathways. Thoughts are neural pathways which connect into our nervous system. And your nervous system is what is actually keying into what your body feels. So emotions are caused by thoughts. Every single emotion that you have is being caused by a thought, whether you know the thought or not. Those neural pathways zing in basically to that nervous system, and the nervous system then vibrates in our body, and that is what an emotion is. An emotion literally is just a vibration in your body. Now, I started off my coaching business coaching men exclusively. I really wanted to help men get in a better place with their mental health. And one of the things that we talked about specifically a lot is emotion. Because if we are tapping ourselves out from emotion, then it is really hard for us to, number 1, get to know ourselves and our thoughts. And number 2, see that all emotion is absolutely going to be part of our body's processes. So when we tell ourselves, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever, that there are emotions that are not accessible to you because they are looked at in a certain way in our society, then what you're absolutely doing is you're actually tapping yourself out of having an entire experience with yourself and with your entire life. So like, for instance, I had one client come to me and he said that he didn't feel a lot of joy or happiness. And so when we talked about that, we started to see that he was actually shutting himself down from having any type of emotion because he was also not supposed to be a crybaby. He also wasn't supposed to be way too angry. That was another thing. So he had all of these things about his emotion. And so he started to shut himself down. So then the things that he actually wanted to feel, happiness, excitement, joy, all of those things he couldn't experience fully because he wasn't allowing himself to experience all of these other emotions that he said would make him show up as a certain way. So why do emotions matter with beliefs? Because beliefs are going to cause emotions. If I say that you're in full belief, belief can be an emotion, but any type of emotion that you have, you want to check in with your body because like I said, emotions are vibrations. And so when I say belief for myself, I really don't feel any vibration in my body. But when I say belief, what I feel is like lit up. I feel committed. I get excited. That creates some vibration in my body, right? I can actually, when I get excited, I can actually feel it in my back, which is interesting. I can actually feel it like almost tingle in my back. So every type of emotion is going to be experienced different for different people. So when we talk about belief, if I'm not in full belief about my goal, then what I also see is doubt or frustration or even resentment come in. Some of those actually start to like close up in my throat. I get a pit in my stomach. I get a knot, right? Like those are also vibrations that are happening. So when we talk about belief and that belief scale, 0 to 5, I want you to notice how the vibration, that emotion in your body starts to change as you go up on the scale. If I'm a 0, then what, like I said, I might get that big knot in my throat. I might start to doubt myself, right? Those type of emotions start to come up. The more belief I have, the different types of emotion I'm going to be experiencing. So once again, let's tie it back to what I was talking about before, which is thoughts. Your belief scale is made up of your thoughts. That's it. Belief about anything. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's about yourself. I don't care if it's about religion, politics, God, whatever you decide. Belief is all made up from thoughts. So if you believe in yourself, that's because you've thought something over and over and over again. If you doubt yourself and you are at a 0 in your belief, it's because you have thought something over and over and over again. So I said that neural pathways are thoughts. So neural pathways are the connections that our brain makes from one thought to another. And it's simply just the neural pathway connecting into the nervous system. So once again, a neural pathway is created every time we have a thought. That thought is then connected to the nervous system that then creates a feeling for us. If I think a thought over and over and over again, it creates a very fast neural pathway. I like to think of it as like a water slide. So if I continue to think that I can't do something, that neural pathway gets slippery. So think about it like, a slip and slide. You have to kind of run to get some momentum there. But the more that I think that doubtful thought, the more slippery, the more fast that neural pathway gets. And so then I go from a water slide to a slip and slide to like a water slide, right? It's going to go and it's going to become quicker where the momentum is already there. So then what happens is if I create doubt over and over again, I have this very slippery neural pathway that is very fast to get stuck in. Now, good news. Some of you are thinking that there's no hope once we get to a slippery neural pathway or a slippery belief about ourselves and what we're able to do. Good news. That's not the case. You can absolutely reverse those neural pathways by thinking different things. So when we talk about belief, understand that belief is just thinking. That's all we're talking about when we're talking about belief. And that belief can absolutely be changed, right? We talked about ebbing and flowing on that belief scale. That belief can be changed really quickly by thinking something different. So let's talk about something like my client that's going after becoming a professional sports player. At first, his thought was, this is never going to happen. Now, of course, he wants to get to the thought of like, this is absolutely happening. I will be a professional athlete. That can be a really big jump there. So when we talk about jumping from one thought to another, understand that it's going to take a couple of things. Number one, it's going to take practice, intentional practice. You're going to just think a lot just because it's a slippery slope. Remember, it's that slippery water slide that you're not going to be able to do it. You're doing that because it's fast. It's a neural pathway that's been connected. When we start to create new neural pathways, it's going to take intentional work. So work on thinking something different, but understand that sometimes the jump is too big. You're not going to be able to go from I can't do this to I'm the best at this. So what we want to create is a ladder system of thoughts. So you're going to go from I can't do this to I will try, to maybe this is possible, to I'm doing the work, to I'm really good at this, to it's possible I could be a professional athlete. Do you see that difference of stepping towards something with intentional thoughts? We're working on our belief scale. We're working from going to a 0 to a 2, 3, and then all the way up to a 5. Your beliefs matter because your thoughts matter. You show up based on your actions. Every single action and inaction that you are taking in your life right now is being determined by your thought and your feeling. We take action based on vibrations in our body. We take inaction based on those vibrations. So remember, vibrations are just emotions. So come back and let's follow this all the way through. You have something in your life that you want, and then you think a thought. That thought creates feelings in your body, and then from there you take action or inaction based on the feeling that you're having. All of our actions and inactions are causing the results that we have in our life right now. So you can absolutely see the connection between your thoughts and the results that you have in your life. If you're looking around at your life and you have something that you don't want, you can't just throw away accountability and say, I don't know why this is happening. It's happening because you're thinking something. Now, there's other things that happen outside of us, like natural disasters, other people's actions, other people's words, the weather, things like that. Those are circumstances. Those are happening outside yourself, and you absolutely cannot control those. So, if you come and you say, well, Carrie, I was in an earthquake. Yes, you were in an earthquake. That's a fact. But then how do you think about that earthquake? How do you think about the circumstances happening around you or in your own life? That's what matters. That's the part that you take accountability of. You don't take accountability for circumstances because they're outside of you. You can't decide and determine what someone does, but you can decide and determine how you show up. So let's talk again about that belief. If you notice that you have this negative belief that kind of just comes around you all the time, we want to look at why you find yourself at a negative place most of the time. And most of the time it's because your neural pathways have been set up that way. Nothing wrong with that. You think a thought over and over again, and then you notice that you start to show up. So some people are just predispositioned to having those negative thoughts. That doesn't mean that that's always how it has to be. My husband often teases me that I have something called worst case scenario brain. That's where if anything happens, I automatically can figure out what the worst case scenario is. Did you ever read those books that were choose your own adventure? That's my brain, literally. I will go to a circumstance and then I'm like, this could happen or this could happen. And I always go for the tragic thing. My husband, on the other hand, is very, very optimistic and positive. And so he always chooses the other adventure. But here's why I want to tell you this and why it matters. Because I could live in the space of seeing that I could always see the negative or the worst case scenario. But now that I know that this is kind of my water slide, right? That thing that just happens naturally, I can actually now control it. So when something comes up in my life and I see that I want to go to worst case scenario, what I love to do is I love to actually schedule time. I call it my worst case scenario time, and it's on my calendar. So I had this big speaking event coming up, and I saw myself getting really nervous and thinking about all the things that could go wrong. But what I did is I stopped myself. I went to my calendar and I put worst case scenario event for this event, and I scheduled time. It was like 15 minutes. So anytime that it would come up in my brain, I just told myself, oh no, this is scheduled for later. Oh no, this is scheduled for later. So I started to see that the more that I could do that, the more that I was not just finding myself spinning in this anxiety about the event. So the worst case scenario came time and I told my brain, have at it, what you got? And I made this huge list of all the things that could go wrong. After that, I looked at it and I told myself that all of these are optional. And I told myself that even if some of these things happened, I still got to decide how to show up. So it went back and it helped my belief that not that I, number one, could handle what was going to come. And number two, that there were a lot of things that I could actually control. It helped my belief, but I didn't let myself live there. So maybe you're seeing that you're maybe one of those worst case scenario people like me. Maybe you're telling yourself that you're just that way. And I really, really want to push back against that and say, yeah, maybe, but did you know that you can change? Absolutely. By looking intentionally at what you're thinking and believing. You don't have to believe something because it's in front of you. That's the other thing. Just because maybe, somebody wants to tell you like, oh, you can't believe that, it's not there. You can absolutely believe in something and have no evidence whatsoever that it's true. What makes you feel lit up about your belief? What makes you feel alive about thinking about things? Belief is just a thought over and over and over again. But what are you doing intentionally and on purpose? Most of us are letting our beliefs get away with us. We are letting them run amok in our brains. You have beliefs that you haven't questioned for years. Why? What are you afraid of? Why are you letting a belief about who you are stand in the way of living the life that you've always wanted? I was told from a really young age that I was really shy and quiet. And I started to believe that because I did get nervous around people. So then they put a name to it when I was, in junior high. Oh, you're introverted. And that felt safe. But I noticed that I was missing out on opportunities that I really wanted as I was in high school and into college. And it just wasn't serving me to be this quiet, shy introvert. And finally, one day I was with my coach and she said, what belief about yourself do you wish you didn't believe? And I said, I wish I believed that I was a people person that loved to be with crowds and that I wasn't an introvert. And she said, you know that being an introvert is just a belief. It's just a thought. And I was like, well, no, I took a test. How many of you have been there where you've taken the test online and so then you start to believe that that's who you are? So I was in full belief that I was an introvert. And she said, Carrie, that's not true. It's only true because you're living in that space, in that reality. You're living in a belief space and a reality that you're creating by how you're thinking about who you are and how you show up. That day when I was told that a belief was just that I was an introvert and that absolutely wasn't who I was, changed my life. I started to show up a different way. I started to smile and engage more with people because I decided that that was what was going to light me up. I decided to participate more, raise my hand more, say yes to more things because I wasn't an introvert anymore. It didn't serve me. I see it still come up. Like I said, sometimes I'll be on stage talking to thousands of people. And right before I get on stage, there's this little thought, that water slide, right? That belief about being an introvert. And it tells me something like, you can't do this. You don't do these types of things. You're an introvert. And what I do is I just take a deep breath in and I say, thank you, but that doesn't serve us anymore. And that's not who we are. Instantly goes away. And I'm able to show up engaged, excited, so lit up to be around so many people and so excited to have that engagement with them. So I want you to think about your beliefs because your beliefs about yourself when you go after a goal are absolutely going to be critical. I watch people stall themselves out so many times by saying things like that introvert thing. Oh, I'll never be able to make this amount of money because I'm not good with money. Oh, I'd never be able to date that guy because of this or that. That's a belief system that's getting in your way. It's not an action thing that's getting in your way. It's your belief. So if you want to take those bolder actions and live that intentional life that lights you up, let's start with your belief. What are your beliefs about your goal? What are your beliefs about yourself? And if you find some that you don't really particularly like the introvert thing, stop and ask yourself, how is this belief serving me right now? And if it's not, it's time to get a coach and it's time to work on these things. Now, in coaching, I have a lot of people that get nervous about coming to coaching. Like I mentioned before, I coached men exclusively at first. And I had one of my very first clients come on and he said, this was worse than a blind date. He said, the anticipation that I felt getting on a Zoom call with you, he's like, I didn't sleep last night. I was looking at the clock all day. And I asked him, like, what makes you so nervous about this? And he said, I feel like I'm going to have to talk about things that I don't want to talk about. So, as we talk about beliefs and things in coaching, because I know that some of you have maybe never had a coaching experience before. Maybe it's your first time kind of being introduced to this type of work. So what I want to kind of remind you is with coaching, it's your session. Coaching, and whether you're with a group or a personal one-on-one coach, it's all about the experience and that you never, ever have to talk about things that you don't want to talk about. This is a time for you to just kind of quiet your mind and be able to sit with someone else that has different angles and different questions to ask you. There's no judgment. There's no things of like, oh, you absolutely need a change. Being a coach means that I just get to sit with my clients and help them see different parts of their mind and how they're thinking. So when you think about belief, I want you to start with yourself. But if you see that there might be some places that you're missing, I'd absolutely love you to come over to Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, DM me, and let's have a consult. I promise you it's easier than going on a blind date. Most of the time, our consults are on Zoom. So it's just you and me, and we just get to hang out and talk. One of my another client of mine, he came on and he said, I'm so nervous to talk. And I said, well, what do you love to talk about? And he said college football. I was like, awesome. I could talk about this all day. So during our 45 minutes, we spent about 40 minutes talking about football and then 5 minutes on coaching. And we just kind of tied it all in. And he said, that was so easy. He's like, that was like talking to one of my guy friends at lunch. I was like, yeah, coaching really is that easy. So if you're interested in coaching, come on over. I'd love to connect with you because it's so important to be able to look at these beliefs. Your beliefs matter. And I want to offer that your beliefs are the things that are either propelling you forward or holding you back. And these are absolutely things that when we can work on them, you can intentionally think anything you want to. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.